big trades started, a lot going on. So we're gonna go and jump right into the big fish. It is official. 11 years later, Damian Lillard he's officially requested a trade from the Portland Trailblazers after being loyal to the soil for a good amount of time. He's decided, you know what? We got 7 guards and they're all children and we have absolutely no chance of winning. Go ahead and send me out of here. The preferred destination is once again being reported as Miami. That's where he wants to go. They just obviously have to work it out. So I'm gonna quote LeBron James, say it's about damn time. As much as I've always wanted Dame and the Blazers to win something, it's been since 2019 since they've really had a chance, and even then they really didn't have much of a chance. So I think it's about time. Let him go out there, let him see what he can do on a different stage.
Yes, I don't think there's any question about that. It's time for Dame to move on. He has been, you know what? I feel the same about Dame that I did about Melo leaving Denver. I feel like this is a situation where he has done everything in his power to drive things forward in Portland, just like Melo did in Denver. Tried his best to get Denver to the playoffs. In the same vein, Dame tried his best to get them deep in the playoffs. So much so that we have one of the greatest memes ever of him waving Paul George off the court in his exploits. So I think it's a situation where Dame has done everything. It's obvious that Portland can't do enough to get him there. And so send him somewhere who can. And it's going to be tough, let's be honest, because the teams that he probably wants to go to and the teams that would be the best fit for him to have success are not going to be the guys giving Portland the best trade options. And that's what's this fine line right here. Is Portland going to choose to honor the man, or are they going to honor their bottom line at the end of the day? That's going to be the big question in this trade conversation. And I'll be honest, I don't know what's going to happen here, because it is absolutely wild. Because I'd love to see Dame go to a contender like Miami, but realistically, he's more likely to go somewhere like Minnesota. Realistically.
I'm kind of happy you mentioned that, because I've mustered up a 3-team trade in my noggin here that I think could work out for a little bit of everybody. There's obviously a lot of logistics to make the money worth the draft picks and everything like that. We're just going to talk about the main players. We want to get him to Miami because that's his goal. So we're going to say Dame's going to go to Miami. We'll say those two alone can't quite make the trade happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that third team, and it's going to be Minnesota. What's going to happen is Damian Lillard's going to end up in Miami. Karl Anthony Towns is going to end up in Portland. So they're going to get a young all-star caliber player in exchange for Dame, for lack of better terms. They just paid Anthony Edwards a super bag, so that's who you are building around. Rudy Gobert, you gave up the entire state of Minnesota at that point to go get him, so you can't just get rid of him. It's not working with 3 centers that they have on the roster. So send Karl Anthony Towns and his 3-point shooting 7-foot self over into Portland to play with. To play with all those guards like Anthony Simons as well. Like, just play with all of those guys up there, because they're like 5 deep at young guards in Portland, including Exactly. You just drafted 1-2 with the 3rd pick. So go and get Karl Anthony Towns, get yourself a big there. Miami's going to get Dame Lillard. There's going to be like Tyler Hero, I think, is going to be part of the deal, and he's going to end up going to Minnesota. Draft picks are going to be involved as well. I think, honestly, if you're Miami, I think Duncan Robinson gets involved too. He probably goes to Minnesota. Throw in some draft picks, move some things around, but those are kind of the main pieces, because I think you're going to keep Scoot Henderson, obviously. He's not going anywhere. He's not a shooter either. He's a drive. He's going to drive to the paint, then you can kick it out to your 7-foot 3-point shooter in Karl Anthony Towns, for who wants to revolutionize shooting out threes. You have Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons as your other guards you can work around. You're rebuilding, obviously. Portland's going to get some picks.
Still have Jeremy Grant, who can arguably be your number 1 scorer. So you'll have 3 different levels there. You'll be able to flip things around pretty quickly if Scoot's as good as we think he is. Minnesota, you're gonna get a point guard in some way, shape, or form, probably from one of those teams as well, or at least another guard to complement Anthony Edwards. Maybe get Tyler Hero to go in there. You're opening up the floor so much more for him to run and dunk on people. They're gonna get a lot of picks in it as well. Maybe Anthony Simons actually goes to Portland as part of the trade to give him another guard. Either way, there's ways to work it out. And I think those 3 teams you can get. Miami's getting the least amount. They're getting Damian Lillard, and that's it. Everything else they are shipping out. So they'll have to ship out some picks, some players, pretty much everything besides Jimmy Butler and Bam at this point. So there'll be some work to do, but it makes Miami the favorite in the East. It makes Minnesota, if they get that 8th seed, they're not getting clapped as easily, and I think it opens things up for the future, especially with Anthony Edwards. And if you're Portland, it kickstarts the rebuild a little bit faster, because Cat's still an all-star player, still in his 20s, and you just drafted Scoot Henderson. So you know what? Figure out the money. I'm not the GM. I'm not using the ESPN trade machine. This is just ideas I've made. Figure out the draft picks and everything like that, but I think those could be your main players for a Damian Lillard trade.
Yeah, I think to make that work, I think they've already shown that it has like 4 different players or 4 different picks that need to go for Miami, which they have. They have all the picks to send out too. I'd also mention maybe Vic Oladipo potentially being packaged in one of those trades as well. You talk about maybe going to Minnesota, maybe send Vic to Portland type of a situation. You never know. Look, don't get me wrong, I still love Oladipo, but let's be fair to him and say his career is on the waning end and not the waxing end. It's tough to see, but those injuries are finally catching up. But yeah, no, I mean, I think if you're Miami, your number one goal right now is purely to just like get somebody to help you that you know at the end of the day, if you're in a finals again, it's not going to go over 14. Like they're gonna hit their threes, at least 3 of their threes, to help you win these games. And we all know that he can close out just with the best of them too. So take some of the pressure off of Bam as well, off of Jimmy as well. So yeah, I do like that idea. But don't be surprised that you mentioned teams that they package deals with. Looking at teams that have cap space that could take on some of these contracts, don't be surprised if somehow Sacramento gets involved. You talk about Minnesota potentially getting involved. Maybe it's a 4-team trade and Sacramento gets involved and Cat ends up in Sacramento, but then they send somebody somewhere else. Like there's potential possibilities all over the place here. Utah has all the cap space to play with too. Boston, because they haven't re-signed, all their pieces yet, still does have space to play here. I don't think he ends up in Boston, but I do think if Boston gets involved, that could change a lot of minds. Because who knows with Boston type of situation. You also have Brooklyn to look at because Brooklyn has cut a lot of cap this offseason. Yes, they did re-sign Cam Johnson, but they got rid of Seth Curry. They got rid of pretty much anybody that is not going to be a starter this next year. They have the big 4 from the trade with Phoenix, or the big 3, and then Dorian Finney-Smith from the trade with Dallas. So they have all 4 of those guys still, and Spencer Dinwiddie as well. So they have all 4 of those guys still ready to go, and they're probably going to start with Nick Claxton, and then there's a whole lot of nothing there on that bench. So they do have some cap space that could play with. Whether it's getting involved or bringing him in, I don't know, but it's probably getting involved. But yeah, I'm interested to see with this Dame thing. I don't have a proposal for a trade. There's just lots of fun commentary to talk about with Dame because you just never know with front offices whether they're going to honor the man or honor their bottom line at the end of the day.
Absolutely. That's definitely one we're going to keep an eye on. And you know what? Probably as soon as